During the COVID lockdown, Susan Fogarty and I used our 20 months of not being allowed to crisscross the Atlantic as a gift of time to research the life and work of Eldridge, artist of distinction and wife of R.S. Thomas. This research led to the creation of a website in her honor, which is scheduled to go live on the 1st of August, the 113th anniversary of Eldridge's birth. Our research included looking at her illustrations for books. In one book, I saw her drawings making points differing from those of the author of the book. Then I remembered Elsie when she was a little girl. She was summoned one day to the office of her school's headmistress, who told her she was evil. She had taken her pencil and outlined the pattern of bunches of grapes on the tablecloth at lunchtime. The headmistress said to her, "You would not have done it at home." Elsie replied, "Yes, I think I would, for all kinds of drawings are good." As a mature artist, Elsie remained the little girl who was confident that all kinds of drawings are good, even those that subvert the narrative of the author. The drawings I want to look at closely appear in a book titled Journey Home by E.H. Partridge. It was published in 1946. So Eldridge probably made the drawings in 1944-45 in the rectory at Manavon, and we have the current minister of Manavon here in the room today, but not living in that rectory. Made them in the rectory of Manavon while she was pregnant with or had given birth to her son Gwydion. Partridge wrote Journey Home during the Second World War when he was headmaster of, and I giggle every time I get to the name of the school, when he was headmaster of the Giggleswick School, I kid you not, Giggleswick, in the West Riding of Yorkshire. The home of Partridge's journey was not the house in which he grew up, nor the school where he was headmaster. It was the world of mountain, sky, moor, and river, the natural world, our first home. And his journey was on foot, carrying his fly rod and gun. The fishing flies in this drawing reveal Eldridge's skill with pen and ink. With a few lines, she creates impressions of 7 distinctive flies, each with a sharp hook. Her drawing is so placed on the page that it breaks the flow of what Partridge is saying. He writes, "There are few better bedside books than an old fly box, nor can any jewel case afford," and here's where the drawing is inserted, "nor can any jewel case afford a more entrancing prospect." The entrancing prospect for Partridge is his old fly box. Eldridge, on the other hand, is entranced by the prospect of the flies escaping from the box and flying across the sky like a gaggle of geese. Partridge relished the physicality of fly rod fishing. Eldridge's response is whimsical. Her flies do not hook fish. They hook our imagination. Eldridge drew the equipment used by men and women to catch fish, but the only fish caught in any of her drawings for Journey Home has been caught by an otter. Now let's compare how Elsie and another artist illustrated the same chapter in a book. This time the book is not by Partridge, but by Henry Williamson. These drawings are central to chapter 22 in The Starborn by Williamson. The one on the left by C.F. Tunnicliffe appears in the 1933 edition of Williamson's book. The one on the right by Eldridge in the 1948 edition. Both editions were published by Faber and Faber. Tunnicliffe's wood engraving invites us into the dark of night. Branches of a winter tree divide a moon into thirds, and an owl's whiteness rhymes with the whiteness of the moon. Eldridge has drawn a day-lit dreamscape. A woman and a man stand on air, through which birds are flying, their nakedness partially concealed. By comparing the responses of Eldridge and Tunnicliffe to Williamson's text, we gain an understanding of one of the ways Eldridge interpreted her role as illustrator. Tunnicliffe's wood engraving illustrates Williamson's words, these words: "The moon climbed the worn steps of the sky, and the white owl was flapping and crying for help, held in a gin below the mountain ash on Oaten Hill." Tunnicliffe understood his role as that of helping the reader see what the writer is saying. Williamson's text engaged Eldridge's imagination, but her creativity took a different course. Her drawing does not help the reader see what the writer is saying. Rather, it invites the reader to enter a surreal world, a world suggested by, but differing from, the world of the book's author. The trap, which appears in Tunnicliffe's illustration, is missing in Elsie's work. She resisted drawing an owl snared in a gin, just as she refrained from drawing a fish snared on a hook. This echoes a pivotal personal experience in Eldridge's life. On the day when Elsie and R.S. Thomas were out on a moor and decided they could live together, they found, in Elsie's words, a buzzard in a gin trap on top of a pole. We were able to free it after putting a coat over its head to calm its fear. Then R.S. threw the trap into the middle of the lake, and the bird flew off strongly. I wonder what sort of creature the farmer thought had flown away with his trap. Tunnicliffe, in the lower picture, has drawn an owl caught in a gin. Elsie's owl above hovers in the air. The trap is missing. Back now to Journey Home. Elsie does not draw any creature that has been killed by a human being. The mature Eldridge remained the little Elsie who had stood up to her headmistress. She took her stand against the culture that promoted the blood sport of killing birds and fish. Doing so, she was kindred to the 19th century J.M.W. Turner. This close-up of a portion of Turner's painting emphasizes the manacled slaves that the ship's captain ordered to be thrown into the sea when told that his ship was running out of water. If the slaves were to die of dehydration, the insurance company would not pay. But if the slaves were lost at sea, the owners could collect compensation. By including manacles in his painting, Turner challenged the authority of a slave-owning culture. By excluding a trap from her drawing, Eldridge challenged the authority of a blood sports culture. Back now to Journey Home and the view that Elsie and the author shared. Partridge occasionally refers to mountains, as in a passage printed around this drawing. When you arrive at a mountaintop, he writes, you enjoy, and here the drawing is inserted, you enjoy a wider vision and set your feet on the threshold of wisdom. Elsie includes mountains, thresholds of wisdom, in just over half of her illustrations for Partridge's book. 3 years later, more than 3/4 of her drawings for a book about South Wales contain mountains. Eldridge used the same mountainous landscape in both books, with sheep and a man on horseback, but she shifts the man from right to the center in the later book, elevates the left hillside, adds trees, and slightly reconfigures the flock of sheep. In conclusion, some of Eldridge's book illustrations help us see what the author is saying. Others, as in Journey Home, subvert the author's perspective. Still others allow us to imagine additions to the author's narrative. In this drawing, her road invites us to imagine walkers, complaining about their calloused feet, pausing to add to their life list, or suggesting a break for lunch. Occasionally, they look up at the mountain peaks there on the horizon and see them as fingers lifted, as sentinels of silence.